Hi, everybody. I'm Scott.
And I'm Luke.
And I'm Jonathan.
And this is the No Way to Hollywood podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us, especially you, Ashley's family.
No way, Hollywood. No way. That's my intro this week. Whatever you've got to say to me, no way.
No.
No.
No. Okay, guys. Now that I'm gonna cry and laugh all at the same time. And
inside jokes are great.
They are wonderful and delightful. Yes.
Recorded for all time and on the internet.
Oh boy. Well, let's dive in then. I know you guys have been reading the news about the Hollywoods online.
And I say, no way! No way!
No way!
But, hey, let me know. What's interested you online this week?
You going, Jonathan, or am I?
Jonathan,
Luke,
go.
You want me? Okay.
Okay.
The moderator has spoken.
Yeah,
I should
okay.
go. This week in the news for Hollywood, I feel like I actually should have prepared a little bit more. But the one thing I've been thinking about a little bit more is because I love me some Dune. I've been all excited about Dune. If you've been following this channel at all, you should know that I'm like super hyped on Dune. This new movie coming out, right?
Can you please give the impression of the
wait,
first
there's
time
a movie coming out called Dune?
Dune!
There it is.
Like there it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been excited, and I've been very confident in the filmmakers and the casting, and like a lot. I've been like, this is looking really good. But there's been some information, some statements from the director talking about his vision for the film. So Denis Villeneuve, who, again, still I trust to do a really good job with this film. At the very least, it's going to look great.
I mean, the trailer shows that it looks good. So, yes.
It's going to look real good. Here's the thing. There is, I don't want to get into story spoilers at all for this movie. But I can say that the main character in the book of Dune is Paul Atreides. He's the main character. And in this movie and in these trailers, you have seen it be set up that Paul Atreides is going to be the main character. This movie, as has been mentioned before, is actually the first part of two that will cover the first book of Dune. So what we're going to see is really only half the story in this first movie.
Yes,
now,
but for our viewers, there is a very natural breaking point in the Dune book. A significant amount of time passes. So
yes.
This is something that would make sense, especially if you were going to give even like half the detail that the book gives.
Right. And again, it all sounds good, right? And this is where I'm going to be tricky. It's going to be a little tricky here, but the nature of the story and the nature of the character and the kind of thing that's going to happen to that character, how that character is going to progress. Denis Villeneuve has said that in the second movie that the character of Chani, played by Zendaya, is going to end up being the main character of that movie.
That is an interesting choice.
Exactly. Now, I can't decide if I think this is genius or if this is like dumb Hollywood gender politics at play. Because, again, in theory, Paul Atreides is the main character of a hero's journey story in a very interesting, full universe that requires two movies for you to dig into everything around the hero's journey in a lot of ways, okay?
Yes.
But there are various things in that universe that support, I think, this decision from Denis Villeneuve, like knowing the story and, again, not giving anything away. There are some interesting decisions that I think probably support this decision for this story. But knowing Hollywood and the nature that they have of any chance they get taking any story from any time period and just making it about modern thought processes, modern politics, so on and so forth, especially anything gender politics, racial stuff, it just concerns me because it's possible that it's either a really brilliant, really smart way of handling the story, or it's like a really ham-fisted, we're just choosing to do this because we want to go the gender politic route, especially in the second story. And I don't know yet because I haven't seen the movies yet. And it's been a while since I haven't read the book in like a long time. And so I don't know how I feel about this yet. And I just wanted to point out there that if there's a reason that I'm a little concerned about the movie, it's literally almost nothing else except for these kinds of statements I've been hearing, where I'm just concerned that it's not really truly storybook reasons to make these decisions, but rather gender politic reasons to make these decisions. And I'm not sure how that's all going to play out. Again, I think there might be an argument both ways, and I don't think it's very clear cut, and I haven't seen anything yet. But just in my world, when Denis Villeneuve says the main character of the second movie of Dune, the second half of the story is going to be the female character lead, it's like, well, is that because you need to, or because it makes a lot of sense, or is that because you're trying to force something and actually change what this book is and what the story is? And I don't know, but I just wanted to put that out there.
From the perspective of having read the book within the last year, listened to it on Audible, they do a good job of getting into the head of a lot of different characters. Mm-hmm. So throughout the entirety of the book, different chapters will be written from the perspective of different characters. Mm-hmm. And I will say that in the second half, there is a significant number of chapters devoted to this female character. So from that perspective, I still have hope that Hollywood will not ruin the movie like we fully expect them to, but that's not a guarantee.
Right. Well, and I just wanted to bring that up as just a side note of, I'm always excited, but just if I have a concern, currently that's the one thing that looks concerning to me potentially. But yeah, I like Scott said, I think there's some strong cases to be made that maybe it makes a lot of sense actually. I just don't know yet.
As someone who has not read any Dune, and I'm purposely avoiding all the videos that are like, catch up on Dune before you see the film. I'm like, I don't want to know anything. I want to just go in and watch the movie, and then I'll go read the books. Because this is one that like I truly just haven't gotten to yet, and then I'll get like the Audible and I'll be burning through it. But yeah, like again, like as Denny said, it sounds like it's like I'm doing this because the story demands it, right? This serves the story. In which case, awesome sauce, right? It's always just like there's what you say,
right,
and then there's what you do. Like, hey, right. I built this He-Man show for the fans,
right?
Like, did you?
Right.
Okay. So yeah, that's where things get interesting, and that's I'm very interested to see how it goes. I really hope that the first one actually is awesome and lots of people see it and it makes a lot of money, because then we get to see the second one. Because otherwise we don't get to see the second one, and then I'll be like, well, what happens? I don't know.
Right. And just to like, we don't need to hamper on this for too much longer, but like I'll just quickly give a brief summary of the He-Man situation of what Luke just referenced. If you don't know, if you're one of our viewers who just like gets the news from us somehow, sorry.
Yeah, why would you do that? That's a terrible idea.
Basically, you may have heard of He-Man cartoon from the 80s, big burly dude, actually a kid who has a sword that he can like turn into a big buff dude who fights evil, okay? And that's
more than I knew about He-Man up until now. Okay.
That's an old cartoon, very, very dude-centric kind of stuff. Kevin Smith got the rights to it with Netflix. He had the opportunity to make the show, like do a reboot of it. He chose to do a sequel to it, and he kept on saying a lot that, hey, I am going to do this for the fans, and I love this show, and we're doing some awesome stuff. And that He-Man's like the main thing, and they marketed that, and then the show came out, and most He-Man fans were very upset because He-Man like goes away in the first episode, and then it's another female character who they changed to be very butch, in like more butch than she already was, and she's like a main character in this He-Man muscle show, and she became like more butch. And so I don't have a big dog in the fight, but I just want to say, when people got wind of this before it came out, they called Kevin Smith out on it, and he said it's not that way, it's actually this way. And then the show came out, and it literally was the way that the people were saying, and Kevin Smith said it was not. So all this just to say, it's a big drama thing. It's another sign of like Hollywood, Netflix, big people being like, toxic fandom is the problem. When it's like, you literally lied to everybody and then got angry at them when they were upset about it. Like, it's pretty messed up stuff. So just to go in this idea of, you can say anything you want to say until we see what actually comes on the screen and what you actually did, the jury's out.
Yeah, and from what I've watched one video on the topic, and the girl who was talking about it, she's like, I actually enjoyed where the show was going. They just should have titled it like this other character and her amazing journey without He-Man, and then everybody would have been okay because they would have known what they were getting into, instead of making it a He-Man show and then having He-Man die twice in the first season. Apparently, I don't know. So I haven't watched it. I don't care about He-Man at all. I'm not watching it. I don't care. It's just it's one of those
why
things.
the story's important. It's just a reference for you to understand what that means about fans versus Hollywood and communication.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Luke, your turn for headlines.
Okay, well, yeah, so just while I was restarting my computer to figure out why my speakers weren't working, technology! Okay, it's working just fine. I just need to restart my computer. Why? I don't know. Okay, while I was doing that, I was trying to get a headline about why Disney is going to have to share profits with a tech firm who created mocap for special effect. I don't even know. I could not understand the legalese, and it was not a well-written article, so sorry, I can't tell you what's going on with that. Weird stuff. If I figured out, I might add a link or something, but I don't know. Okay, the second thing, though, the prior thing that I'd seen, is a headline where Ryan Reynolds talked about how much his wife, Blake Lively, is important and integral in making his movies. And as someone who has made a couple of short films and has a wife, I can tell you, yes, they are so integral to making a movie. Like, Brittany
Marshall
is...
Lucas.
What? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like... editing Star Wars so it's good. Good job. Like saving George's film. Like, good job. And yeah, my wife has been really integral in making my films, in helping me produce them, in helping me figure stuff out, in sorting out details that I never would have even thought of. Like, clearly important, as well as Ryan points out, the emotional support and being there for you and believing in you and all of that stuff. So good job, Blake Lively. Apparently, also, she has come up with some of the best jokes and lines and, like, even ideas. Like, apparently there's a cameo in Free Guy that is just awesome, and she was the one who was like, you should do it! And then he's like, oh, that's a great idea, and, like, texts. And then, like, the guy's like, okay, I'll drive down and we can show up, and I'll do it in 7 minutes, and we're done. Like, apparently it was just, like, this quick thing that happened, right? And so that's all awesome. Like, fantastic, great job, and yes, it's great to have creative people working together in the industry. Like, love it. It's so good. But one of the things that Ryan pointed out is that Blake is never credited as writing in any of the credits, even though he regularly brings it up, where he's like, no, I didn't write that line. That was Blake's line, and it was great, and she's hilarious, and that's awesome. And he said, okay, so I keep bringing it up, and they keep on, crediting it to me, which is weird because I totally tell them that she's the one who wrote it. And then he said it's due to inherent sexism in the industry. And I was like, what? And there's a link in the article to, like, where he said that. So I clicked that link, and it's just another headline where it copies pretty much the exact same thing of what they've already said. And so I'm trying to get my head around what he means by that and where. And so that's just interesting to me. Because, again, I am sure that Blake is super creative and is so helpful in his movies. I'm just trying to get my head around and understand where the inherent sexism is coming into play in this. I'm just curious, especially since, like, Hollywood is, like, so self-aggrandizing on so many levels about, like, preaching all these messages about stuff, and I don't know. So that's kind of interesting to me, and I tried to get to the bottom of it by reading a couple of articles, and I still didn't get a sense of where that's coming from. So
okay, Luke, who actually has final decision on what's in the credits?
That's a great question. I think that there are very specific rules about what goes where and how, down to whether it's an ampersand or the word and for writing credits in particular. So those kinds of things are regulated by the industry as far as I know. And then I don't know who actually chooses. I don't think it's the director, but I feel like, like people put in, like, special thanks all the time in credits. I like, special thanks to these people. So especially, and apparently, this is another thing I didn't know, Ryan Reynolds apparently writes a lot of these films or is involved in I had no idea.
Well,
so
see, and this is where it can get really tricky, because if you've got a couple of improv actors and they're improving a bunch of comedy scenes, even though there's a script or there's a loose script, or maybe there is no script, but in any of those cases, if you've got an entire scene that's improv by two comedic actors, where literally the beginning to end is just their lines and their ideas and they're playing around with things.
Yeah.
Do you credit them as writers as well?
Right, because like Robin Williams apparently, like, ad-libbed a ton in, like, Aladdin and stuff like that. Did he get a writing credit? Right. I don't know.
Well, and there's so many different things at play. In the indie film world, everyone wears like 35 hats. So do you credit the same person for 35 things? That's its own discussion, right?
Yes, I did.
And then
we
there's
appreciate it. Thank you, Luke.
And then there's Hollywood, right, where you have like writers guilds and film actors guilds, screen actors guilds. You have a lot of different other things going on. And there's payment, like billing, right? Yep. If you are first, you get billed more. If you're last as the actor, you get billed more. Like your order in the credits matters. What your job title obviously matters. If you get credited, does that mean you have to have been paid specifically by the studio? Like there's a lot of things at play, right? And does Ryan Reynolds does he get a writing credit in Deadpool? Like, I don't remember. I mean, you could look that up.
Look it up. IMDb exists.
But you know,
comment
it's
below
one of
if
those
you figured
things
it out.
where there's, there are literally guilds and unions that are at play for payment. And so I would imagine that it's not just a credit, unfortunately. I imagine it's probably a credit plus a lot of questions about how much, like, do we have to pay her now because she came up with the joke, but she's your wife, and we'd really rather not pay her because we're already paying you. So can we just like get on with this? But at the same time, does it have to be that way? Can we give a credit anyway where credit is due? How many should we just have everybody and their wives on like the credits because it's probably true? How far do you want to go? And I think there's some validity to that, but
and then clearly the guild set forth specific rules for credits for a specific reason, right? So if for whatever reason her giving her husband a few ideas for different jokes doesn't qualify under what the guild says, that's more of a guild problem than it is a sexism problem, in my opinion. But I'm all for giving her a credit, especially the way he's talked about it.
And apparently he talks about her often, which is great, and praises her, a lot, which is fantastic. And this is where I'm like, is there a special thanks? Like I would totally be like, and special thanks to Blake for making this thing not only possible, but also giving me all the best jokes. I feel like that would be a really good thing to do.
Well, and the credits, of course, are like are the fastest way to try to credit everybody who helped out on a movie that's in the movie itself. But it'd be really, the behind the scenes could explore that. But really more than that, like I'm almost wondering, just random idea, what if credits weren't just names, but instead, like, what if Ryan Reynolds was just in the credits, just being like, Jim was great because he did this, but his wife was also awesome because she did this, and then like just play by play through the credits and just improving the whole thing. I'd watch that. I'd totally sit and watch the whole credit
ever.
Like
an audio track where it's like, so yeah, remember this? The Best Boy Electric? It's actually a girl. That'd be great stuff. Yeah.
Oh, I hope Ryan Reynolds watches this because I want to see it on his next movie.
And if you do, I want credit for that moment.
He is the perfect guy to do it too.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds, if you're watching this, please leave a comment. That'd be hilarious. Dude, that'd be awesome.
That'd be amazing. I don't expect our viewership to go up at all, but that's amazing. I'd be very happy. Thank you, Ryan Reynolds.
Well, Luke, the reason I did ask you about who decides on credits is because Ryan Reynolds was an executive producer on this film, Free Guy. So
interesting. So I don't know. Ryan, is it your own fault? I don't know, man.
So is Ryan Reynolds indicating himself as a sexist? Or is he just married?
Oh, my. Okay. Now, we've probably talked for a whole episode on 2 headlines. Let's get into our main topic for the night, guys.
Hey, Scott, you know what you should do? You should go see the Suicide Squad. What?
You know that I hate comic book movies. Why would I ever want to go see Suicide Squad?
Because it's pretty good, even as a comic book movie and as not a comic book movie. It's actually a pretty well done, fun movie. I'm not saying it's the best movie. It ain't no Dune or what I hope Dune will be, but it's it's pretty good, especially considering the movies that are coming out these days.
Yeah, and how like Citizen Kane has sounds at the beginning of each word. Suicide Squad is also 2 words, and
and that was it. That was the moment we lost the argument. Wow.
No, okay.
Because the title is 2 words. Okay. Jonathan, you say this is a well-made movie. Let's start out with the story itself. What is good about the story that would make me want to go watch this movie?
This story, as is well said by Filmento's video essay about the old Suicide Squad and this Suicide Squad. Yes, link below. Basically, this story understands that characters matter. And as such, chooses to put you into POV situations where you look through characters' eyes at the situations at play. And because of that POV experience, and of course can change POV, but because it actually takes the time to get into POV, you can laugh, you can be somewhat horrified, you can actually get into an emotional headspace with these characters. And that's maybe one of the best things about the movie, I think, which is I knew going in that this is a James Gunn film, and James Gunn is known from his earlier work of being very gruesome and bloody and violent, which is not really my thing. And he's done the Guardians movies, so makes jokes. Great, he makes jokes. That's wonderful. But the thing that I think is the most valuable thing about James Gunn being a part of this movie is beyond the studio allowing him to have a full director's vision to do whatever he wanted to do, which is very helpful to make it an actual art piece or an actual cinematic experience, is he brings heart to the story. This is a story about like lesser known comic book characters who are the anti-hero villains of other comic book heroes' stories, who have been forced into prison and then forced onto a suicide squad, a task force where your head will explode if you don't go through with the mission. And as like insane and dumb and crazy as all of that comic book stuff is, James Gunn's like, yeah, but here's this character called Ratcatcher, not even that, Ratcatcher 2, and I'm going to make you care about them. Here's this other character who's a giant shark. I'm going to make you care about them. Like, and he does this with most of the characters, and he actually creates interesting situations between characters because characters actually have motivations and they have ideas about how things should go, and they can be in conflict. And that can actually be pretty interesting. So by the end of the movie, I was surprised that as I went into what I hoped would just be a fun action blockbuster with some jokes, that I actually had some heart. It actually had some emotion. It actually had me feeling a few things. I was like, characters had arcs. They weren't just the same character at the beginning and the end. Mm-hmm. They had actually gone through something. They had actually begun to care about something else. I had actually empathized. And I found that fairly impressive. I mean, it's really sad that I'm saying this because really every movie should do this. But considering what comic book movies do, and I think one of the things that maybe you don't like about comic book movies, and one of the things I've gotten tired of, is a lot of them are built on cinematic universes, and they have to sort of, like a sitcom or a TV show, keep a character relatively the same. They can't really go through too much of an arc because, you got to keep them in the same place for the next big story they're going to go to, or they're going to revert the next story. This one, I mean, it's possible it could happen, but the characters they went on arcs, and a lot of characters don't make it. There's a movie called Suicide Squad, and people die in that movie. It's who would have thought that was going to happen?
Yeah, that does happen too. The part.
Will those characters come back to life like other stupid comic book movies?
No.
A lot of them will not.
Right.
At least I have no belief that they will. Right. Okay, there's no reason for these characters to come back. Part of the good thing about it being characters who are not Batman, Superman, and Iron Man, like characters that have to show up again at some point. These are characters you just got introduced to and have no idea who they are, and just as quickly potentially are dispatched. And you're like, well, I don't think I'm ever seeing that character again. On the screen.
Again, one of the characters who is a person that you don't know about is Ratcatcher 2. That's great. Like, it's so good. Okay, so here's my question, Scott. Did you like Mystery Men?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so I would pitch this as Mystery Men with insane violence. like I think there's even some like similar like motivational pieces behind people in it, and so it's got a suicide. It's got a Mystery Men like happy-go-lucky feel in a sense, even as people are dying horribly, right?
It's got the B tier element.
Yeah.
Mystery Men has an element that's very much like let's make fun of superhero stuff, and this does it a little bit. I don't think it has that as much, but I do agree with Luke that there's like the whole idea of like we're the B tier heroes that no one knows about, and we gotta go do a thing, and can we or can we not do a thing, and will people die, and will things go wrong, and like that's all available to you because it's not a Superman movie. Like that's in Mystery Men, and that's definitely in Suicide Squad.
And they definitely start you out with things going wrong. Like it's not like, yeah, it's great on that front. Also I'd say that like, you know, like one of the ironies of Mystery Men, right, is you've got Mr. Furious, who like his special power is that he gets furious, he's really mad, and then he like can't actually accomplish anything. And I'd say that the Echo, what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever. The similar character in this one is Peacemaker. Not because he's not effective the way that Furious is, but because he's Peacemaker. But does he actually bring peace? And what does that actually mean? And it's actually, I think, an interesting question, which you as a philosophy major may actually enjoy.
And I have to say,
Luke might know me well enough to actually make decent arguments as to why I should actually see this movie.
I know. See, Citizen Kane. It was there all along.
Simple. Totally simple.
Just because Citizen Kane is one of the greatest movies ever made. That was a really weak argument, Luke. I'm sorry.
Look, here's another question. Scott, do you like kind of cheesy 80s action movies? Like an Arnold Schwarzenegger, hey, I'm on an island and I gotta like kill everybody here. Do you ever enjoy those kinds of older 80s, 90s action movies, you know, where things can get wild a little bit? And
I could take them or leave them.
You can take them or leave them? Well, I know that I enjoy them, and this is definitely one of the closest movies to something like that in a long time, because truly, let's go to an island and solve this problem, and lots of violence ensues. Like, that is absolutely a part of this story, and as much as that may seem very superficial, it plays because of characters like Peacemaker and these sort of larger than life characters, and this band has to go and do a mission on an island country you've never heard of with a lot of death count and a lot of crazy. It actually feels a lot like one of those older action movies. And I don't mean that with necessarily all the cheese or the Arnold Schwarzenegger one-liners, but if they do have one-liners, it's pretty dang funny because they're bringing it's the modern approach to that, right? So there's also, if you are interested in that kind of movie, you're also getting that movie in this movie.
Well, I do appreciate a good one-liner. I will say that.
Okay, so then here's the question. I know you don't particularly like flashbacks, especially in Star Wars. But how do you feel about like taking a sidestep and not doing a flashback, but doing a like, okay, here's what's been going on over here in the film. So like this has been going on, but now we're gonna just stop for a minute and go look over here for, you know, like 10 minutes ago this is going on in these characters' minds, and you're gonna see where they converge later. It's kind of like an internal movie plot point flash sideways thing.
It's a sequel in the movie.
Okay. So Luke, what you're talking about is more on the technical side of the making.
No, they literally are going along and they're like, by the way, pause. 8 minutes ago, and then it cuts to these other characters doing something.
I mean, it all depends on how they do it. It's
okay. It's supposed to be funny.
It's a trick, you know. I don't know.
Okay.
I will warn you. There is essentially I wouldn't call it a hard, full-on flashback, but there is a soft flashback in this movie, with one of the characters talking about some things that happened in their past. But
it's during the conversation. Yeah.
It's contextualized in a conversation that's happening in the present. And the way they even film it most of the time is actually in such a way that the flashback images are actually still within the image of the current scene.
Yeah, and actually I think that's a very what they did is very creative, because it gives you a chance to do the like remembering back thing while still staying with the characters and seeing their acting, which I think is actually really great. And it's not like the way they do it is really, really creative in that way. It kind of makes me think of like Zack Snyder's the Snyder Cut with Cyborg, although that was a little more on the like specifically, but here like it's melded. So yeah, and that's interesting. Yeah.
Do you enjoy absurdist comedy? Do you enjoy absurd things happening?
At times.
Well, absurd things happen.
So much absurd happens. This movie is tonally balancing like 35 different tones at any given time.
Yeah.
And I also would recommend that if you do get convinced to go see it, that you do actually go and see it if you can on a good screen, because at the very least, the end of this movie is so bonkers absurd that I hope you can be on the big screen laughing and also like, wow, they're doing this.
Yeah, there's definitely a oh my. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. What other techniques do they use in telling the story, like this interesting flashback, not flashback thing?
They do text on the
Yes.
screen, but they do it in a silly way. So
Kind
it's
of
not
generally contextualized somehow in the scene, as if the very elements of the scene are somehow doing the text.
but it's so on the note. I don't know. Like, so yes, they'll often be like, and here's some text for you, which they do like very early on when they reveal the title of the film. It's basically like, here's the text, and you're like, okay.
And it's kind of like chapter headings in ways.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's certainly not Tarantino. I'm going to go to black and be like chapter 3, my story. But it definitely has the sense of, here's the next thing we're doing, and we're gonna just like, I'm just gonna tell you this is the next thing we're doing. Okay, we're truly in that, which you already know. If you're following the story, you already know. But it just sort of emphasizes we're changing to the next thing now.
And again, I think that's all done for humor. I think they do it to be silly. What else do they do? I mean, they do some, like, reversals of expectations or like roles, right? You've got like the damsel in distress, but then she's not actually in distress, but then she kind of like wants to be rescued because that'd be silly, like.
That. That's good stuff.
I know it's good stuff. Let's see, what else? You've got some Deus Ex Machina, like, but again, it's all for humor or for absurdity. Just like, and we just happen to be right here. All right.
I think there's this one shot of the film. Maybe you've seen the trailer. It probably doesn't stand out to you much, but it's actually, especially with, again, Filmento's like showing you the equal shot in the first movie, and this is the classic superhero, Ocean's 11. Hey, we all like the obligatory. There's so many cool characters in this movie. What's the shot of them all walking somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's the cool shot? And thinking about just taking the image of like the original Suicide Squad movie and their like version of that shot, and how freaking boring it is comparatively to the shot they have of the main characters in this film, and how it's got such a like. I have actually. Even though I've seen that shot 1,000 times, I have actually not seen this shot like this before. Like I just haven't seen it like that. The decision of lighting and atmospherics and how much they are actually obscuring characters and why and what moment it comes in the film. Like, and that's the thing is, I really believe that one of the things that James Gunn does in this movie is I don't think he takes it for granted that you'll like this movie. Like, I don't think he takes it for granted that you'll like the characters or that things are cool. I think instead he's like, I have to earn it. So, for instance, your really cool power shot of like all the characters walking is somewhere close to the third act of the film. Like you have to have gotten all the way to there before we're gonna give you the shot that's actually the cool version of this shot to like, hey, you earned it. This is these characters. This is what they're doing. It's pretty cool. And they do a shot like that as well earlier. And even that's still more interesting than the Suicide Squad shot. And that's also played for laughs and whatnot. But there's just a lot of good choices. There's a lot of interesting, fun, choices being made, creative choices being made.
You also have the issue of like, if you're all a bunch of villains or scum or whatever, right? How are you going to get around to becoming a team, to trusting each other, to working with each other, to dealing with each other, and all that? Like that is a major theme, and it's played out in multiple different ways throughout the film. And one of the ways, and it's great, an emotional switcheroo on you, where you're going along, you're like, yeah, you guys are kicking butt, you're doing great, and then they flip it on you, and you're like, oh, Oh, never mind. It's
Yes.
so
And it's pretty funny in one way,
And
incredibly
horrifying in
sad
another,
and
yeah.
horrifying in the other.
because it's
Yeah,
absurd.
it's just a thing. You have to see it to understand. But
Okay.
there's lots of stuff like that, Scott. It's just, and that's the thing is, I find it fun. I don't think it's the greatest movie ever. I don't think it needs to be like required viewing for anybody. It's incredibly inappropriate and very violent. And if those things will bother you, don't watch it.
If gore's a thing, like there's some
Gore's
gore
very
in the
much a
movie.
thing. I don't think it's again, it's kind of cartoonish.
Yeah.
Wait. I
kind of over
thought
the
you
top.
guys were trying to convince me to actually watch this movie, and you just gave me the reasons why not to watch it.
Yeah, but the blood is cartoonish. I just said cartoonish.
Yeah.
It's not like
So
torture.
So let me ask you this. Could they have made this movie without the gore and still had a good movie?
That's a very interesting question because one part of me says, sure, they can go that direction, but another part of me says, not really.
Because then it wouldn't be Suicide Squad.
It wouldn't be these characters and this kind of like this kind of property almost demands this level of absurdity and violence.
Right.
It makes sense that it needs to be sort of over the top for these characters. I think it does actually make sense.
And you've
It's
seen Tropic Thunder, right?
I have not seen Tropic
Okay.
Thunder.
All
Gosh
right.
dang it! Show up
'Cause
to
that-
movie night, Scott.
Because that
watched
also
that
that
two
also
movies
that also
ago.
has like like gore at places. Okay. I'm trying to find another movie that has a similar level where like it's a lot, but it's
a lot, but it's kind of purposeful in its humor
Yeah,
or something.
Deadshot, like Deadshot 2 or UHF with the Rambo sequence. I don't know.
Maybe Deadpool-ish a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
well, there's a sequence. Okay, there's a sequence in Deadpool 2 where he gets a task force together, and there's a lot of violence that ensues from that, and it's pretty funny and it makes sense, and it's kind of it. I don't think kids should see this movie. In fact, in my theater, there were like 12-year-olds and under in the movie. And I was like, what is happening? You shouldn't be here. But as an adult who, I think there's Saving Private Ryan, which you treat with a lot of respect, I think, and it's serious and it's pretty hardcore. And then there's this movie, which is, I don't think that violence is something to make light of, but when you're in a silly universe, by virtue of it being a comic book movie, it's a silly universe to begin with, and you have all these hardcore characters. Having characters kind of go splat on the wall like a bug kind of makes sense, if that makes sense. It's more like that than it is. This is very serious.
Yeah, it's not the beach landing scene in Saving Private Ryan, which is horrifying, right?
It's horrifying and rightfully so.
Yeah, this is not that at all. But people definitely die because it's Suicide Squad. You're a group of people who go on suicide missions.
They all have bombs in their head, for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
They all have bombs in their head. And even that whole thing, the whole the organization systemic thing going on around them is also, I think, better in this movie and more interesting and more emotionally enwrapping than it has been in the past, certainly. But there's an arc going on there too of the people running these people and what you have to be like to do that. And who are the bad guys in all of this?
Right.
The whole movie's, that's the other thing. It's anti-hero, villain central. If you don't want that, I understand, but it's anti-hero, villain central, where it's that classic rule of, to make villains look good, you get other villains who are worse next to them, and then they fight it out, right? It's that kind of world. It is not really superhero stuff. But even that has something they touch on towards the end.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So did we do it, Scott? Did we convince you to go push play?
Possibly. The arguments that I appreciated were, one, your appeal to my desire for philosophical thought. And I do appreciate some absurdist humor, so I appreciated that. I'm still quite skeptical about it being comic book world and that side of things. And I'm honestly not thrilled with, the amount of violence that appears to be in this movie. So,
There's violence.
with that being said, I'm probably still up in the air, which probably means, does Scott have time to go see this movie? I don't know. So we'll see.
Okay, we're gonna let that A-list just sit there. Okay, there we go. All right.
Yeah,
I'm
go see
using my
Hugh Jackman in a pool of water for like 3 hours. You know, that's what you really need to do with your time. You could go see Suicide Squad, but go see Hugh Jackman in a pool of water. You'll remember things. It'll be great. There'll be a story of twists and
that
turns.
actually appeals to my philosophical side even more than, say, Suicide Squad might.
I mean, I believe that, because this one's like a what in the world is this? And you're like, as a philosopher, I must know.
Yes. On that note, I'm not going to force you guys to give any recommendations since you've just been, spent the last 20 or so minutes trying to convince me to go see this movie. I'm actually going to go back to our discussion earlier about Ryan Reynolds and actually make the recommendation to our viewers to go enjoy the movie Free Guy. It was delightfully fun. It had a lot of great pop cultural references, obviously with the cameo we discussed earlier, as well as several other things. If you like movies in general, you will probably have at least one moment in this movie that you will enjoy. And yeah, I think
down to, if you like movies, you might enjoy at least one moment in this movie. Is that what we've come to with movie? I'm just so sad about movies in general right now. It just makes me sad.
Just saying. I'm just saying. Anyways, it's never gonna win anything awards wise, but it's a fun movie and it's worth your time. So I am recommending that you all go out and watch the movie Free Guy.
Unlike Luke, I have A-list. I might actually go see this movie, but Luke, would you even entertain the idea of seeing this movie?
Well, now that Scott's recommended it, I will try to watch it so that we can talk about it at some point in time. But we'll see what happens.
You see, that's what happens, Scott. When you've got a good friend and podcast member, when others go see the movie, you just go ahead and try to get the movie done yourself so that we can all talk about it.
But speaking of time, yeah, I have a limited amount of that. Yeah.
Yep, that's the thing. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll catch you again next time.
Yeah, we will, because you'll still be watching. Thanks for watching, everybody.
And Hollywood, no way, no, bad Hollywood.